Chapter 4. The Sound of Salvation. The brood hungered. Dallas Mother's flesh had stretched into a grotesque cathedral of meat, veins like suspension cables, ribs curving into vaulted arches, his hollowed skull now a pulsing throne at the center. The last of his humanity was a shriveled raisin behind glassy eyes, watching as his own birthed horrors circled him in the Texas sky. Their laughter was a swarm of knives. One Wurg-Hotling, larger than the others, its gelatinous hide streaked with the psychic scars of dead dimensions, drifted close, its tiny hole puckered wetly. "Father," it hissed, voice oil-slick and giddy. "We're bored." Dallas Mother's jaw creaked open. A sound like a dying radiator wheezed out. Not words, not anymore, just the last static of a man erased. The brood convulsed in unison, their brown masses quivering with agitation. "Again?" another spat, licking its non-existent lips with a flicker of dark energy. The same old screams, the same tearing. It prodded Dallas Mother's swollen belly with a claw. "We need more. We need worse." A ripple passed through the horde, then a twitch, a glitch. One Wurg-Hotling's eye spasmed. Black hole irises flickered for a fraction of a second with something else, something human. Dallas Mother's remaining hand jerked. A finger twitched. The brood didn't notice. The largest Wurg-Hotling screeched, "The fracture! The fracture!" And the others swarmed, their bodies merging, distending, forming a single pulsing monstrosity that split the sky like a zipper. Through the tear, Earth, but not theirs. The cosmic zipper of the Wurg-Hots' new, desperate attempt to fracture reality further was immediately countered by an impossible, jagged line of pure white light. This second crack, a wound of order against their chaos, split the fabric of the void where Dave Kessler's consciousness was flayed. It appeared at the height of the creature's desperate, shrieking laughter, and for a fraction of a second, the laughter stalled, a broken record skipping on a cosmic turntable. The Wurg-Hots' black hole eyes, usually so feverish with sadistic hunger, were fixed on the crack with a look of pure, unadulterated confusion. Its obscene hole, which had been pulsing with the vile rhythm of Dave's forced, endless birth and consumption cycle, paused. Then the crack sang. It began as a vibration, a silent internal tremor that resonated not in the air, but in the marrow of Dave's shattered bones. It rose quickly into a high-pitched frequency, a sound so impossibly pure, so utterly clean, that it acted like a sonic solvent, washing away the filth of the Wurg-Hots' presence. It was the sound of a tuning fork struck in the heart of a cathedral, the perfect crystalline note of order imposed upon chaos. The effect was immediate and absolute. The supernova of pain that had been Dave's constant reality, the twisting of his gut, the splintering of his joints, the taste of cosmic bile did not lessen. It simply ceased to exist. It was not relief, but a sudden, profound absence. The Wurg-Hots' will, the iron grip that had forced his body into its profane ballet, dissolved like smoke. Dave's body, still floating in the gray void, was his own again, though it was a ruin. Across the world, in every hidden corner of torment, the same silence fell. Marcus and Lena, their faces still smeared with the blood of their perpetually regenerating children, slumped against the pulsating wall of their apartment. The compulsion to devour was gone, replaced by a dizzying, terrifying freedom. Dallas, the 20-foot multi-limbed monstrosity, froze mid-wail, the thousands of tiny, laughing Wurg-Hot spawn clinging to his flesh suddenly still, their obscene holes silent. For the humans, the frequency was a key turning in a lock, opening a door not to freedom, but to memory. The sound bypassed the horror, the trauma, the present reality, and went straight to the deepest, most protected chambers of the soul. It was a current of pure, distilled sentimentality, a river of forgotten beauty. Dave Kessler, the washed-up blender salesman, felt the frequency wrap around his consciousness like a warm, familiar blanket. The gray void around him began to shimmer, and the image of his old kitchen, bathed in the soft, golden light of a late afternoon sun, materialized. He was standing by the counter, a mug of lukewarm coffee in his hand. His wife, Sarah, was there, her back to him, humming a tune he hadn't heard in years, the theme song from a terrible sitcom they used to watch when they were first married. She was wearing the faded blue apron with the tiny embroidered sunflowers, the one she always wore when she baked. The air was thick with the scent of cinnamon and vanilla, a smell so real it made his phantom lungs ache. He watched her turn, her face younger, unlined by the years of quiet disappointment and eventual separation. She didn't see him, not the ruined, tormented thing he was now, but the Dave she loved. She smiled, a genuine, effortless curve of her lips, and the light caught the single silver thread in her dark hair, making it gleam like a promise. "You're just going to stand there, Dave?" she asked, her voice a low, melodic alto, a sound that had been erased by the Wurg-Hots gurgling. "The cookies are ready, and you promised to tell me about the new blender model." He remembered that moment with a clarity that was more real than the agony he had just endured. He remembered the way the light made the dust motes dance in the air, the gentle thump of the oven door closing, the comfortable, profound silence between them that wasn't empty, but full of shared history and quiet, unbreakable love. He remembered reaching out, not to touch her, but to simply rest his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of ownership and devotion that needed no words. He remembered the simple, staggering truth of that moment. This was happiness. This was the entire point of existence, distilled into the scent of cinnamon and the sight of a silver thread in his wife's hair. It was a memory so beautiful, so overwhelming in its gentle domestic perfection, that a tear, a real human tear, not a fluid of torment, tracked a clean path through the filth on his cheek. The frequency held him there, suspended in that perfect, unassailable moment. It was a gift, a brief, stolen breath of humanity, a reminder of what had been lost and what was worth fighting for. Then, with the suddenness of a snapped wire, the sound vanished. The golden light of the kitchen was instantly replaced by the sickening gray void. The scent of cinnamon was violently overwritten by the stench of rot and cosmic filth. The silence of love was shattered by the return of the Wurg-Hots' wet, gurgling presence. The pain returned. It did not ease back. It slammed into Dave's consciousness like a freight train. The agony of his twisted, regenerating body, the searing burn of the cosmic bile, the crushing weight of the Wurg-Hots' will, it all rushed back, 10 times worse for the brief, cruel reprieve. He screamed, a sound that was instantly swallowed by the void. The Wurg-Hot, which had been frozen in its moment of confusion, erupted in a frenzy of pure, chaotic rage. Its brown, gelatinous mass began to pulse violently, its black hole eyes narrowing to pinpricks of furious light. "What was that?" it shrieked, its voice a chorus of jagged whispers, now laced with genuine fear and incandescent fury. "What intervened?" It slammed its mass against the invisible barrier of the void, a soundless, violent tantrum. The crack, though silent now, remained, a defiant scar on the fabric of their reality. The Wurg-Hot turned its rage back on Dave, its tiny, obscene hole quivering with a need that was now mixed with vengeance. You are the Nexus! You brought this silence!" it roared, though it knew the human was merely a vessel. "We were close, we were about to feel, and you let something stop us." It began the cycle of torment anew, but this time its movements were jerky, its focus broken. The brief, beautiful memory was a poison in its playground, a stain on its canvas of suffering. The Wurg-Hots, the bored gods of torment, were not happy. They were terrified. The interruption was an insult, a threat, and a reminder that they were not, in fact, omnipotent. The effort was immense. The cost, a momentary tear in the veil, a flicker of pure, uncorrupted resonance. It was a sound that could not be sustained, a frequency that burned too brightly in this low-vibration reality. But it was enough. The thought was not a voice, but a pressure. A vast, cold, and ancient consciousness that existed in the spaces between dimensions, a silent observer that had finally been moved to act. The entity felt the Wurg-Hots' fury, their pathetic, desperate need for sensation. It was a noise, a static that had been allowed to persist for too long. The entity was tired. The act of pausing the crack, of injecting that single perfect note of human sentimentality, had drained a reservoir of energy that would take eons to replenish. But the seed was planted. The memory, the love, the scent of cinnamon. It was a weapon. It was a truth that the Wurg-Hots, in their endless, self-imposed hell of sensation, had forgotten. It was the one thing they could not consume. The entity retreated, the vastness of its mind contracting, its presence becoming a whisper again. It watched the Wurg-Hots resume their pathetic torture, their movements now frantic, their laughter brittle. It knew it could not fight them directly. Not yet. But it had shown the humans a glimpse of their own souls, a truth that would now burn beneath the layers of torment. And it had left a message for the Wurg-Hots, a simple, cold promise that echoed across the dimensions. You are not alone in the dark, little parasites, and I am not bored.